Christ's solemn command, "Son, go work today in my vineyard." These are solemn words. They express the affection of the Father and the authority of the Sovereign. They imply a duty, for the neglect of which no excuse will be deemed sufficient, no dispensation granted. There is no alternative between doing the Master's work or suffering his displeasure. Can you inquire, Christian, what you are expected to do? Which is your field of labor? When you are to enter it? How long you are to toil? Let me reply to these questions through a fact from the history of a man of the world. A gentleman named Quatremer Disjoinville was once thrown into a dungeon in the city of Utrecht. Without a companion, without books, what could he do in his solitary prison? Apparently nothing. But, unwilling to be idle, even there he gave himself to the careful study of the habits of a spider, which had spun its web within his cell. He soon found himself able to predict changes in the weather from its movements, a trifling discovery, but yet vastly useful to him in the issue. For the next winter a French army invaded Holland, and was in the full tide of victory, when a sudden thaw stopped its progress and led its chiefs to resolve upon a retreat. But the prisoner, who had learned its movements from his jailer, and who, from the conduct of his spider, judged that severe frost would soon return, contrived to inform the French of his opinion. They put faith in his judgment and maintained their ground. The frost soon returned, as he predicted. The victorious French completed their conquest. Disjoinville was set at liberty. In this fact we see a man doing all that was possible to his power under his circumstances. It was a little thing he did, but it had mighty consequences. It determined the issue of a war, and gave him his freedom. And what does Christ require of thee, O Christian, but to do always what may be possible under your circumstances, to diminish the amount of human sin and sorrow, and to increase human purity and happiness? A smile, a word, a tear, a gift, a prayer, or a sermon may be the thing required, according to your ability and opportunity. Every moment is the time, every place, the sphere of your labors. Every human being who comes within reach of your influence, the subject for you to act upon. The duty to be done may appear trifling in itself, or it may seem weighty and serious, but if done right, it will be fraught with mighty consequences. Remember, a virtuous act is never lost, even as no action terminates in the cause which gives it birth. Go then, Christian, in the spirit of this command, and do whatsoever thine hand findeth to do. Seek thy work, and it will come to thee. Perform it well, and it shall remain in thy praise forever. If thou seest its fruit, rejoice. If thou beholdest it not, continue nevertheless to labor. The child who sows flower seeds in his garden at night is apt to weep in the morning if the expected flowers do not appear. It is well if he do not impatiently destroy his first labor by raking after the seeds to see if they have sprouted. With a spirit very similar to this, do many Christians labor for God. With zeal they sow the seed, but when the fruit delays its coming, with childlike impatience they fret and pronounce their labor lost. This is not only childish conduct, it is worse, it betrays an undisciplined spirit, an unsanctified will, and an impatience unworthy of a disciple of Christ. It savours not a little of selfish vanity, which yearns to feed itself on the proofs of its power to accomplish moral results. It indicates that earthly aims are mixed with his religious labours. Otherwise the mind would find its reward in the consciousness of the duty done, of God's approval. It would not fret itself because the seed delayed to show its shoots above the soil. As a man of faith, you must learn to wait as well as to labor. You must comprehend that it is your mission to sow, to plant, and to water. These things done, you must be satisfied to wait, knowing that the tardiness of the seed to throw out its shoots is not always a proof that its vitality is lost, that a moral harvest is often reaped a long time after it is sown, frequently after its sower has gone to his long home. Therefore, wait in hope. A boy once shot an arrow in the air. So lofty was its flight that he lost sight of it in the clouds and failed to detect the place of its descent. Long time he searched in vain around the meadow, and at last went home mourning the loss of his arrow. Years passed away. The boy became a man. After many wanderings, he revisited the haunts of his boyhood. Walking around the meadow, he gazed upon a venerable oak whose wide-spreading branches had frequently sheltered him in his boyhood from the rays of the sultry sun. Full of old memories, he paused until his eyes rested upon a feather which protruded from a hollow in the tree. He drew it forth, and with it the identical arrow which years before he mourned as lost. And is it not thus with the efforts of God's children? They speak in the ears of sinners. They bestow a tract. They utter an exhortation. Or, if in the ministry preach a sermon, they strive to watch the flight of their shaft. Vain endeavor. They cannot track it as it enters the mysterious regions of the mind, and they too often foolishly deem it lost. But it is not so. It has done its work, and either in the future years of time or in eternity, that effort, like the long-lost arrow, shall come back to the bosom of its owner, bringing with it a blessing, even the reward of a duty faithfully performed. It is said of Dr. Koch that while journeying in America, he once attempted to ford a river, but his horse lost its foothold and was carried down the stream. The doctor narrowly escaped drowning by clinging to a bough which overhung the riverside. A lady in the vicinity gave him entertainment in his distress, sent messengers after his horse, and did him much kindness. When he left her roof, he gave her a tract. For 5 years, the good doctor toiled on in the cause of God in England and America. Whether his tract had been destroyed or had pierced the human heart, he knew not. Nay, he had forgotten its gift. But one day, on his way to a conference, a young man approached him and requested the favor of a brief conversation. "Do you remember, sir, being nearly drowned in a river some 5 years ago?" "I remember it quite well," replied the doctor. "Do you recollect the widow lady at whose house you were entertained after escaping from the river?" "I do, and never shall forget the kindness she showed me." "And do you also remember giving her a tract when you bade her farewell?" "I do not, but it is very possible I did so." "Yes, sir, you did leave a tract. That lady read it and was converted. She loaned it to her neighbors, and many of them were converted too. Several of her children were also saved. A society was formed which flourishes to this day." This statement moved the doctor to tears, but the young man, after a brief pause, resumed, saying, I have not quite told you all. I am her son. That tract led me to Christ, and now, sir, I am on my way to conference to seek admission as a travelling preacher. Thus did the good Dr. Coke find his arrow in an unexpected hour, and thus will your shafts come back to you, Christian, in due season. Courage, therefore, drooping friend, weep not over any apparent want of success, but as you have learned to labor, so also learn to wait. Only see to it that you toil on in faith and wait in hope. Be thou like yon old mountain oak, of sturdy mien, in purpose strong, and prove thyself to be unchanged in every sense from right to wrong. Let not success unbalance mind. In adverse times be honest, then support the truth, and thou shalt march a monarch in the van of men.